notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item on the agenda is election of officers. And, well, I guess we'll start with the chairman.
I nominate Timothy J. Burke to be chair of the board.
Thank you. Second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations, Tim. Thank you. Next office will be for the vice chairperson. Nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Carol Downs as vice chair of the board.
No, Carol, I think you prefer to be treasurer.
Oh, would she?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate...
I withdraw that nomination.
We'll take that nomination. We'll go with what Mr. Moynihan. What did you say, Mr.?
I'd like to nominate Priscilla for vice chair.
Okay. Priscilla?
Second.
Okay. Any other further nominations? Hearing none, a motion? Vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And then for the position of treasurer?
I would like to nominate Carol Downs as treasurer.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, okay. Any other nominations? Hearing none, then we'll have a vote for the treasurer's position. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, thank you. Item number 2, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of January 17, 2019. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 3, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for trolley stop program during the cruise ship season within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park for 1 year with 2 one-year options. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since 2009, BPDA has licensed space for trolley tour companies in the Raymond Flynn Marine Park during the cruise season. The trolleys provide tours of Boston to cruise ship passengers that are visiting Boston for a port of call visit. The program not only generates revenue for the agency, but it helps the Municipal Protective Service and BPDA operations staff by dissuading passengers from meandering around an active industrial park. Operationally, we've done this for 10 consecutive years. We feel that we've worked the kinks out and it's fairly routine. For that reason, we're requesting permission to advertise for the trolley stop program for the 2019 cruise season, with options to extend for 2020 and 2021 cruise seasons at the discretion of the director.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 4, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for consultant services to assist with the recruitment for the Director of Planning position. Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. Staff are requesting authorization to issue an RFP to assist with the recruitment of an executive search firm to assist with the identification of candidates to fill the role of Director of Planning. In just a few moments, you will be asked to vote to accept the resignation of Sarah Meyerson, who has served in this role for the past 4 years, and we would like to begin the formal recruitment process immediately. The request before you will allow the agency to utilize the expertise of experienced outside firms that specialize in recruiting executive level positions, and we look forward to beginning this process. We're hoping to fill the position in a timely fashion so that we can continue to build upon the progress of the past several years.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 5 has been removed, and item 6 is personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the
Say
board.
your name for me.
Sure. Hi, I'm Siobhan Feeney. I'm the new Director of Human Resources.
Welcome.
Thank you for voting on me a couple months ago.
I couldn't pronounce, I didn't want to butcher your first
No,
name.
I appreciate it. I appreciate
So I
it.
wanted
When
to
I get Starbucks, it's Mary.
Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. We have one employment service contractor with additional details listed in the board memo for your review. Joanne Evans of the OWD Division, Boston Tax Help Coalition Department. We have 2 status changes for your consideration with additional details listed in the board memo for your review. The first is Devin Wedge, who is Grants and Budget Assistant Manager in the Administration and Finance Division. The second is Herbert Bond, Special Projects Coordinator in the Office of Workforce Development. We have 2 travel items for your consideration with additional details listed in the board memo for your review. The first is Muggsy Undermere, who's a senior planner, and 2, Corey Zengabot, senior architect and urban designer, both of the planning division. And finally, we have 2 departures with additional details listed in the board memo. The first is Angelina Camacho, special projects coordinator from the Office of Workforce Development, and 2, as Heather Camposano said, Sarah Meyerson of the Director of Planning.
Okay,
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And I need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move that we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item is the election of officers. So we're going to open it up for chairman, chairperson. Any nominations?
I would nominate Timothy J. Burke.
You?
Second.
Second. Okay, any other further nominations? Hearing none, then a vote is in order.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Se-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry. Ayes have it. The next office will be for treasurer. Oh, sorry, vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Priscilla for vice chair.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations, Priscilla. And finally, for the position of treasurer.
I nominate Carol Downs.
Second.
Carol, okay. Any other nominations? Hearing none, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 2. Request authorization for the approval of minutes of January 17, 2019 meeting. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 3. Request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 112, the Tremont Crossing Development for a portion of parcel P-3. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 4, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14th, 2019 at 5:40 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the first amendment to the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 98 at 345 Harrison Avenue, South End. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 5, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14, 2019 at 5:50 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director for development planned area number 123 at 20 Clinton Street in the downtown Dock Square Garage area. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 6, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14, 2019 at 6 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the amended and restated master plan for Planned Development Area Number 51, Hood Business Park Development Plan for 10 Stack Street, and First Amendment to Development Plan for 100 Hood Park Drive within PDA number 51 in connection with the revised Hood Park Master Plan project in Charlestown. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Oh, there's gonna be a lot of hearings in March. Item number 7, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14th at 6:10 p.m. are at a date and time to be determined by the director for the development plan for Plan Development Area Number 122 at 139 through 149 Washington Street, Development Project in Alston and Brighton. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 8, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14th, 2019 at 6:20 PM, or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the second amendment to the development plan for Plan Development Area Number 60, the Kensington/41 LaGrange Street Development Project in Chinatown and Midtown Cultural Districts. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 9, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14th, 2019 at 6:30 PM, or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the 1241 Boylston Street project in the Fenway as a development impact project. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And finally, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 14, 2019 at 6:40 PM, or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Plan Development Area Number 118, Rio Grande Dudley Square Development at 2343 through 2345 Washington Street and 11 through 29 Roxbury Street in Roxbury. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, there are a lot of hearings scheduled for that evening
I know.
at 10-minute intervals.
The hearings are unlikely all to happen next month. We just want to be prepared, and clearly they wouldn't only have 10 minutes, but we need to schedule them that way for advertising purposes.
Okay.
We're sure they're gonna be starting much later. But that's more for notification processes
Correct.
also. Okay. We'll get them all in, though. If we have them, we'll get them all in. Everyone will have an opportunity to participate. Okay, item number 11, on the Board of Appeal. Are there any changes, Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. 67 petitions have been prepared for 3 ZBA hearings, including one tonight. There have been no changes or additions.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, then a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeff. Item number 12, request authorization to extend a tentative designation of tropical foods for use of Parcel 10 within the Southwest Corridor Development Plan, known as Parcel B, and to enter into a license agreement for the use of Parcel 10 for 28 parking spaces during business hours, and to take all related matters. Dana?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. The item before us, as articulated, is to look at the tentative designation for Madison Tropical as the redeveloper for 2 reasons. Number one, Madison CDC, which is one part of the partnership, is looking at the further development, completion of development of the 3rd phase of Parcel 10, 2085 Washington Street. They have been utilizing the services of NAI Hahnemann to take a look at analysis of considerations related to mixed-use commercial building. And staff is taking further look at that analysis to ascertain feasibility and move forward with any appropriate changes, part of which will be the inclusion of some residential. That's point number one. Point number two is the fact that while that portion of Parcel 10 is not being utilized for development, Tropical Foods has requested the opportunity to use that for supermarket customers during the day. And staff believes that a nominal charge related to that is appropriate, hence the action being taken. Happy to
thank you,
answer
Dan.
any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Item number 13, certificate of completion. Request authorization to issue a certificate of completion to the trustees of Boston University for the Miles Standish Hall and annex renovation and the public realm improvement in the Fenway. Motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 14. requests authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 45 home ownership residential units, including 6 IDP units, 1,830 square feet of ground floor retail, 10 office space parking spaces, and 45 bicycle spaces located at 10 Tabor Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The item before you this afternoon is the proposed 10 Tabor Street project in the Dudley Square section of Roxbury. The project site currently consists of approximately 9,150 square feet of vacant land located at 6-10 Tabor Street, a short distance away from the Bowling Building in Dudley Square. The proposal before you today consists of the construction of a 6-story mixed-use building with 45 residential condo units, including 6 IDP units, approximately 1,800 square feet of ground floor retail space, and 10 off-street parking spaces. With respect to the Article 80 process, the proponent formally began the small project review process when they filed a review application with the BPDA on November 13, 2018, which triggered a public comment period which concluded on January 4, 2019. During that time, the BPDA sponsored and held a public meeting on December 11th, 2018 at Dudley Cafe, located a short distance away from the project site. In addition to the formal Article 80 process, the proponent conducted additional community outreach with area stakeholders and local organizations, including the Dudley Square Neighborhood Association and Dudley Square Main Streets. Additionally, as a result of input from the community, BPDA, and city staff, the proponent agreed to a number of community benefits, including the commitment to resurface Tabor Street, which has an estimated cost of approximately $25,000, reconstruction of the entire sidewalk on the side of Tabor Street where the proposal is located, and approximately a $5,000 commitment for a public art display on-site or elsewhere in close proximity to the site. With that being said, I'd like to introduce, at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Phil Horesco, who's architect on the development team, to further the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Raul.
That side. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'll go through these few slides here briefly and take questions later, should there be any. As Raul stated, we're right down the street from the bowling building. Tabor is perpendicular to the very fine Bruce Bowling building, and we show those pictures here. So as a way of locating our site, as the upper left side, the building would be on the left. There's a 15-year-old 3-story new building on the left, and our building would start at the end on that left top side. We have renderings that we will show, which will make it easier to understand. We are filling the whole site here. The Palmer building is to the upper left on this site, on this slide here. Our entrance, residential and vehicular, is off Tabor Street. The end of the building facing on Warren Street will look like this. It's fairly simple, all masonry construction. The Tabor Street view is here. All the way to the right is the garage entrance, and then centrally is a entrance into our elevator lobby. And then we have our retail space immediately on the left on the lower level. We have 5 floors, 9 units per floor, 2 bedrooms at either end, and filled with ones from one end to the other. There are small terraces on the second floor roof that sets us apart from our neighbor's building. This is a view from Palmer Street and a section of the property here. Here's a rendering, bowling building on the left, and our building known as 10 Tabor Street is on the right side here. And we're looking toward downtown at this point. And the idea is to have complementary masonry of the lighter tones that exist in the bowling building and some of the more interesting masonry detail. So here is the front on Washington and Warren. Looking off to the left is our new building. And again, this is from Warren looking down Tabor Street, and that's a view what we expect this to come out looking like. So it's some small bays to add interest and set up a nice rhythm along Tabor Street. So that wraps up my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing no questions, and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 15. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E6 of the zoning code for the construction of 21 residential units, including 4 IDP units, 21 on-site parking spaces, and bicycle storage located at 50 Stedman Street, and to take all related actions. Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On October 4th, 2018, Helm Investment LLC filed a small project review application with the Boston Planning and Development Agency proposing the construction of a new 3-story, 21-unit residential building totaling approximately 31,216 gross square feet at 50 Stedman Street in Jamaica Plain. At present, the section of Stedman Street upon which the project site is located is largely industrial and unimproved. Helm Investment LLC was also the proponent of the 28-unit 76 Stoneleigh Road project, which was approved by this board on November 17, 2016, and is currently under construction. 76 Stoneleigh Road is located directly across from 50 Stedman Street, but since the prior front Stoneleigh Road, the addresses differ. Given the shared interest of the proponent in both properties and their subsequent projects, and the existing conditions of 50 Stedman Street and Stedman Street as a whole, the conversations around 50 Stedman were very much in sync with the discussion and review of 76 Stoneleigh Road. Plan JP Rocks identified Stony Brook Neighborhood East, within which 50 Stedman Street is located, on the lower kind of right-hand side, that pink shaded area, as one of 4 areas for suggested changes from the base zoning. The plan recommends conversion of Stony Brook Neighborhood East from local industrial to 3F 4000 to reinforce existing residential uses along Stedman and Plainfield streets. The plan also recommends the gradual transition from mid- and low-rise buildings to the existing neighborhood character of 2- and 3-family homes. As such, BPDA staff feels that the proposed 50 Stedman Street project is consistent with the context envisioned for this area under Plan JP Rocks. The proponent has committed to significant public realm improvements around the project locus, which will result in a far better landscape for this section of Stedman Street. New sidewalks will be constructed along the proposed project side of Stedman Street, which will complement the new sidewalks on the opposite side of the street to be constructed as part of the 76 Stoneleigh Road project. Crosswalk striping will be done at the intersection of Stedman Street and Brookley Road, and the road on this section of Stedman Street, which has been traversed by trucks and industrial vehicles for many years, will be rebuilt. I'd like to acknowledge Will Poff Webster from City Councilor Matt O'Malley's office, Alexandra Valdez from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, and BPDA staff Marie Mercurio, Jim Fitzgerald, Matt Martin, and Michael Knizu, who all contributed positively to the proposed project before you this evening, which I'm pleased to recommend for this board's approval. I'd like to introduce Lucio Trabucco, project architect. We're happy to answer any questions the board may have after the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, it's 50 Stedman Street. It's residential. There's parking on the lower end, on the lower floor, and 21 units above on floors 2, 3, and 4. This release we need is basically FAR, parking, and floor area, the multifamily use. The building, the lot is 14,000. Oh, my glasses. It's sort of 14,000 square foot lot, and the buildings, that's the first floor is 7,300 square feet, 7,800 for in the additional floors, with a total of 30,847 square feet. The 21 parking spaces on the ground floor. Then there's also this charging station as well as bike racks at each parking level. This is the site. The site, again, is 50. That's in the red shade. The Stedman is access to Berkeley Street, which leads to Washington Street, one of the major roads in Boston. It's also within walking distance to the Forest Hill Orange Line, as well as the commuter rail. The site is surrounded by the multifamily building that you see that's under construction right now. There's a construction yard to the left, to the right side of the building. and to the rear side is predominantly three-decker residential neighborhood. Again, the ground floor is it's about 2 feet below grade. The reason for that is because of the high water table. The reason I put all those dimensions, that was one of the conversation we had with the butters as well as the Stony Brook Neighborhood Association. We met all their requirements for the setback of the structure. The structure itself is basically designed to complement the three deckers, which are predominant in their area. We introduced stoops on the lower levels and as well as balcony at the upper levels to facilitate interaction of the new tenants with the residential neighborhood. There's the residential entrance on the left-hand side and the parking entrance to the right side, keep them apart from each other. There's also rooftop activities that we are proposing on the roof level. And all the materials, again, to complement the adjacent residential neighborhood, which is clapboards for finishes, double-hung windows. We introduced some composite panel just to break up the massing and emphasize the base of the structure. This is the left-hand side of the building. Again, same material, clapboards, some panels, double-hung windows. That's the right side of the building. This is the rear. You can see on the right-hand side is the existing 3 deckers, so the proposed building pretty much being the same height as the 3 deckers in the area. It's just rendering just to show the building and the site. Again, the gray at the far end is basically the existing 3 decker. This is the new building on the right-hand side, 76 Stoney, which is under construction, and the proposed building on the left-hand side with, again, the 3 deckers around in the neighborhood. Next to it is an oil depot there, and then the Stoney. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Congratulations. Item number 16, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B-5.3D of the zoning code for the construction of 126 residential units and bicycle storage located at 41 LaGrange Street, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This project consists of a new 19-story residential building containing 126 units with on-site parking, with no on-site parking spaces. The project's unit mix is 54 studios, 18 one-bedrooms, and 54 two-bedrooms, along with management offices, amenity space, laundry facilities, indoor bicycle facilities, 1 per unit, on-site loading dock, that will be provided for move-in and move-out. With move-out activities and deliveries will be accessed from Lowell Court. BPDA staff is recommending that the board take the following actions: authorize the director to issue a scope and determination waiving further review, authorize the director to issue a certification of compliance, authorize the director to enter into a cooperation agreement, and all the other documents that are in connection to this project. You'll hear from Lisa Alberghini, one of the proponents of the partnered development team, and then you'll hear a brief presentation from the project architect, Jay Zemansky.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary, I'm Lisa Alberghini, President of the Planning Office for Urban Affairs, and I'm here with Karen LaFrasia, who is the President of St. Francis House. We are 2 nonprofits that have come together to help the city provide badly needed affordable housing and to further our missions at this location. St. Francis House, I'm not sure if you know this, but it is the largest day shelter in the city of Boston, and our office has developed over 1,000 units of affordable and mixed-income housing in the city. We just want to thank you for the opportunity to come before the board today for the Article 80 component of the 41 LaGrange Street proposed project. This is a very important development with nearly 50% of its units as affordable in this rapidly changing and gentrifying area of the city. I did want to note that in addition to the meetings in Chinatown that were noted in the board memo, we also met with the Midtown Park Plaza Neighborhood Association and had a very positive and productive welcome there. So again, we just want to thank you for your consideration. We are here with our legal counsel and our consultant and our architect, and are happy to answer any questions you may have. And I would like to just introduce Jay Zamansky from the architectural team.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa. So the project is located on LaGrange Street. We're mid-block between Washington Street and Tremont Street. The site is rather tight. It's 8,500 square feet. We're bound by the Kensington to the east, to the north by 48 Boylston Street, and to the west by 4755 LaGrange Street, which is a proposed project that's been approved by the board. Our ground floor includes a residential entrance to the right side, leads into a residential lobby, and then the balance of the space is residential amenity space. So on the street side, we have a community room, a fitness center, and a management office. To the rear of the site, we have all of the back of house operations, so the trash, the loading, the mechanical spaces. So all of the service will happen by a Lowell court to the back of the building. This is the LaGrange Street elevation. You can see our building in relation to the Kensington to the right and in relation to the 47 LaGrange Street project to the left. This is the east elevation facing the Kensington. North elevation, you can see on the bottom there, this blank wall is where our building actually abuts the 48 Boylston Street project. And this is the west elevation where we're hard up against the 47 LaGrange Street project. So a little bit more detail on the streetscape. The concept here was to provide as much transparency as possible on the ground floor so that those residential amenity spaces on the inside provide some life and vitality to the sidewalk, provide eyes on the street to make it a safer, more pleasant pedestrian experience. We are doing some improvements to the sidewalk. The sidewalk gets deepened, and then we're proposing some new paving and some planters at the entrance. There's some aerial images. You can see our building there, again, in relation to the Kensington and to the proposed 47 LaGrange Street project. And another aerial from the north side.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing no questions, motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. And good luck with that. That's a wonderful project. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Item number 17, request authorization to co-petition the Boston Public Improvements Commission to discontinue a portion of a pedestrian easement along Seaport Boulevard and to enter into an agreement to a petition by MS Seaport Block F LLC for the approval of a grant of easement and to take all related actions. Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Again, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The Seaport Square project was approved by the BRA board in 2010, which led to subsequent approval from the Boston Zoning Commission on October 13, 2010, for a development plan for planned development area number 78. The development plan has since been amended on six instances. On November 16, 2017, this board authorized the issuance of a determination waiving the requirement of further review for a notice of project change for the Seaport Square project, and approved the amended and restated development plan for planned development area number 78 Seaport Square project. As described in the notice of project change, the project included the development of 9 individual building sites totaling approximately 13 acres of land, all of which are currently owned by Seaport Square Development Company, LLC, and its affiliates, collectively the developer. As part of the notice of project change approved by this board on November 16, 2017, the developer proposed the construction of a new MBTA Silver Line head house at the southwestern corner of Seaport Common on Block F of the Seaport Square project. In connection with the construction of this new head house, the developer has worked closely with the City of Boston's Public Improvement Commission to amend an existing pedestrian easement. The Boston Redevelopment Authority holds a property interest in a portion of Block F of Seaport Square upon which District Hall is located, and as such is required to act as a co-petitioner to the Public Improvement Commission for the discontinuance of certain portions of the aforementioned pedestrian easement and acceptance of a new pedestrian easement along Seaport Boulevard. Attachments outlining the existing and proposed new pedestrian easement have been included in your board package. Both matters will be discussed at a Public Improvement Commission new business meeting on February 28th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Ashley. Item number 18. Request the authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 18 home ownership residential units, including 2 IDP units, 18 off-street parking spaces, and bicycle storage located at 101 Condor Street, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Michael.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. The project before you is 101 Condor Street in East Boston. It is a small project consisting of 18 condominium units, 2 of which will be IDP, with 18 parking spaces at ground level. It will be a 4-story building at 39 feet in height, made up of approximately 20,453 square feet. The current site includes an auto body garage and an urban farm. The project was filed on December 5th, 2018, with the comment period ending on January 25th, 2019. One public meeting was held, which was lightly attended. The project has received support from the Eagle Hill Civic Association, as well as all the local elected officials. The total development cost for the project is $4.5 million. At the request of the community, the development team has agreed to a $20,000 payment to the Boston Parks and Recreation Department for the upkeep and maintenance of Prescott Park in the Eagle Hill neighborhood of East Boston. At this time, I will turn it over to the development team to go over the presentation in more detail, after which we would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. Richard Lins, 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, on behalf of the petitioner. Mr. Chairman, as Michael indicated, this is a project that's located in the Eagle Hill section of East Boston. The proposal is to convert an existing, which is the proper use is existing auto repair garage and tow lot to residential use. This site sits on the corner of Condor Street and Brook Street, which is probably the furthest most point north in East Boston before you get to Chelsea. As many of the industrial uses along this section of Condor Street have disappeared, there's been an emergence of residential development along most of this corridor, including a number of projects that are under construction or in the development pipeline presently. In keeping with that trend, this project proposes to convert this site to entirely residential use with 18 units total and 18 parking spaces, 2 of those units being IDP. This project, as Michael has indicated, has undergone a thorough community process. We did have direct outreach with the butters, as well as the Eagle Hill Civic Association, all of which expressed support to convert this site from an industrial use to a more compatible residential use. At this time, I'd like to bring up Shane Losey, who can walk through the building program and design. Shane.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Shane Losey with Chu & Company Architects. This is some site context. The existing 1-story building on the corner of Brooks and Condor is where our site is. Across the street, there's a large 4-story building. It was previously an industrial use, so it has taller ceilings, so there's probably about 11 to 12-foot floor-to-floors on that building, so our building will actually be lower than the one across the street. As you go up Brook Street, you can kind of see the lower urban fabric. There's a 1.5-story house behind our project, and then another 2- and 3-story buildings up on the hill. There's about a story difference on the slope up Brook Street from Condor. So from the front of the lot to the back of the lot, we lose about 10 feet. This is looking at the site from the other direction down Condor. Next door, we have a 2.5-story house that's to the right of our lot. Again, you see the 1-story garage building that's in our site now, and then the urban farm behind it. Our ground floor, we have 18 parking spaces accessed off Condor. Like I said, the site slopes, so the back of this garage will all be underground. And then on the corner, we have a large entry lobby just to kind of activate the pedestrian fabric along that sidewalk. So along our front elevation, we kind of use the massing to mimic the rhythm that's along Condor Street now. So there's a lot of groups of houses that are the same with small spaces in between. So we have the three larger spaces, the three larger elements of our building, and then the darker recessed elements to kind of mimic that existing massing that's along the street. And then as we go up Brook Street, we take our massing down to get within the context of the smaller housing that's on that side of the project. And then the rear. And here's a rendering of the project back in that initial context photo we had. So looking at that corner of Condor and Brooks. You can see how we kind of step the building down as we go up Brooks to work within that existing fabric. And along Condor, coming the other way. You can see the building I spoke of to the left earlier, and we're below that elevation. Oops. And that's our presentation.
Okay, great,
Any
thank you.
questions?
Looks good. Are there any questions from the board?
Just have a quick question. So I know there's some planning exercises happening in East Boston now. How would we say, you know, this development aligns with some of the conversations that are happening now?
I think there's several on Condor right in this area, and it's all within the scale of those projects. So we're within what the development is becoming on this stretch of Condor. And we actually gave a little back on the sidewalks to get complete streets, and then we're bringing in street trees to try to work within that, there's not much on this street right now for livelihood and pedestrian friendliness. So the other side is kind of all industrial and then open to the water. So we're trying to bring some life into it a little bit. And I think there's a lot of development going on right now that's doing that.
Okay, if there's no further questions, and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Good luck. Item number 19. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of a 39,679 square foot commercial retail building, 5 off-street parking spaces, and a loading area located at 9 Chelsea Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The item before you this afternoon is the proposed 9 Chelsea Street project located in the Maverick Square section of East Boston. The project site consists of approximately 18,975 square feet of vacant land located at the intersection of Chelsea Street and Maverick Street within a short distance of the Maverick Blue Line T station. The site was last occupied by a defunct funeral home and 3 adjoining buildings on Maverick Street, all of which have been demolished. The proposal before you today calls for the construction of a 3-story retail and commercial building with approximately 39,000 square feet of retail space and 5 off-street parking spaces. The proponent formally began the Article 80 review process when they filed a review application with the BPDA on June 6, 2017, which triggered a comment period that concluded on July 7, 2017. During that comment period, the BPDA sponsored and held a public meeting on June 29th at the Maverick Landing Community Room in East Boston. As a result of the community input and feedback that was expressed at that time, the proponents subsequently submitted an amended review application to the BPDA on January 30th, 2019, in response to the feedback that was shared at that time. On February 7, 2019, the BPDA held a second public meeting at the East Boston Social Center to discuss and review the updated and revised proposal. In addition to the Article 80 process, the proponent conducted additional community outreach with various stakeholders and local organizations, including the Jeffers Point Neighborhood Association. Additionally, as a result of the community input, from the community, BPDA, and city staff, the proponent has agreed to provide a number of community benefits, including a commitment to restore and relocate the historic clock located within the project site, subject to the Boston Landmark Commission review process. That the cost associated with that endeavor is approximately 75,000 square feet. And they have also committed to making a $10,000 contribution to be used to implement the recommendations out of the East Boston transportation analysis included in the East Boston planning study. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Richard Lins, counsel for the proponent, who will further the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Raul.
Thank you, Raul. Again, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Richard Lins on behalf of Linear Retail. By way of brief introduction, Mr. Chairman, Linear Retail owns and operates about 92 retail properties throughout New England. 24 of those properties are located here in the city of Boston, representing about 162,000 square feet of retail. In 2014, Linear purchased a number of properties in the Maverick Square area in order to bring some of its retail footprint to the East Boston community. The current proposal that's before this board consists, as Raul indicated, about 39,000 square feet of gross floor area in a 3-story building. And this retail building would be located in the heart of Maverick Square at the corner of Maverick and Chelsea Streets. The project would replace the former Rapino funeral home site, as well as 3 adjoining buildings that were located on Maverick Street. I would point out this project likely represents the most significant private investment in Maverick Square in probably the last 40 years. There hasn't been a lot of development other than the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center, which occurred back about 4 or 5 years ago. Process to date, with respect to this project, we've been involved in a very lengthy process that started, it actually kicked off in 2016. There's been a lot of back and forth with the community on this project. We did have an opportunity to hear a lot of input, sometimes contentious over this particular proposal. Interesting, a lot of that had to do with the design of the building. We've worked very closely with BPDA staff as well as some stakeholders in the community to come up with a better design, and we feel that what's before the board tonight will provide a much better project. Although we couldn't meet every one of the requests of the community, including preservation of 2 buildings that were located on Maverick Street, we feel that the increase in the size of the building and the materials and the design that we've achieved at this point will help address a lot of the concerns. In fact, when we did bring this out to the community most recently, many of those who were actually opposed to this project originally spoke favorably on the project based upon the redesign. Before I turn this over to John Rufo, who's the project architect, Mr. Chairman, I just want to take a moment to add that we are well aware of the concerns of the Boston Landmarks Commission as well as the Boston Preservation Alliance with respect to the landmark clock that formerly stood in this site last in 2010. That clock has been damaged. It was damaged before Linear purchased this property, but I want to assure the board that any final design of this project will be subject to completing that process with the Landmarks Commission relative to that clock. In fact, we work very closely with BPDA staff, and I know it is in the board memorandum that no final certificate of design completion can be issued by BPDA until we complete that BLC process. So we're well aware of that concern, and we've made the commitment to engage in some very in-depth due diligence with respect to this clock. I've learned more about historic clocks than I probably wanted to learn. But I think Linear's commitment to restore this clock and to have it visible again in Maverick Square is something the community wanted. And I think that when we work through this and intend to file this with the Boston Landmarks Commission in the coming weeks, we will have a product that everybody can be happy with. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Rufo to walk through the program and design of the building.
Good afternoon. I'll take you through the program and then a previous design iteration that we were asked to talk about tonight, and then the current design. So what you see here is Chelsea Street in Maverick, and on the ground floor of the commercial building, it's imagined to be primarily retail tenants. These 3 to 5 retail tenants here, with storefronts on Chelsea and Maverick, most likely the entrances along Chelsea. There's one of the sort of factors about the design is that the grade changes from high in this corner to low in this corner. So thinking about how the retail storefronts open up onto the street is kind of an important design thing that really kind of leads us to a lot of different aspects of the design as you see it. Here in this corner, there's a vertical core, elevator, and stair that leads to the commercial uses on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So this is the previous design, which was a two-story proposal where on the ground floor here is a high level of glass, and on the second floor, this corner has always been thought of as kind of the sort of the focus of the project, and so there was always imagined to be a lot of glass on this corner. Through the process, as Richard talked about, the community, this is about the third iteration of the exterior design. We worked a lot on the proportions and the sense of the feel of the design in the community. I think one of the overriding comments we heard was that the original design, say 2 steps before this, didn't feel enough like East Boston. So a lot of the things we worked with were the proportions of breaking each of the facade elements down into 2 or 3 elements that felt more like it was in harmony and in the context of what's there in East Boston today. So fast forward to today, the proposal is now a 3-level project, and as an architect, I personally find it a little bit easier to work with a 3-story building than a 2-story building. A 2-story building has a way of kind of pancaking low. A 3-story building gives you a lot of different proportions that you can work with to establish a base, middle, and top of the building. So the project here is very similar material palette to what we've always had, brick, stone, metal panel at certain corners, a lot of glass on this corner. The very top here at the corner is imagined to be ideally kind of a 4-season semi-enclosed dining area for a restaurant tenant that I think would be a kind of terrific beacon at this end of Maverick Square, if you will. As we look at the other elevations, you can get a sense for the different facade types that we've been exploring here. Sort of, this is almost a kind of a brick frame loft building, and as you move down Maverick Street, the windows change proportion. And again, there are 2 or 3 elements in the design that we felt were critical to sort of marrying up the building with the scale of the development in the community and what we were getting for community feedback. So along the ground floor, again, 3 to 5 tenants in here that are probably cafe and restaurant, as well as some hard goods retailers. Second floor, potentially fitness tenant. And again, we're hoping for a potential restaurant up on the 3rd floor as well. So as you go back to Maverick Street, same palette of materials, 3 kind of reeds on the facade. Bay windows that were, we sort of studied a lot of the bay windows in and around the Maverick Square area. This element here, which has been sort of talked about as the tower, is actually the place where you go in to enter and go up to the 2nd and 3rd floor uses. So that's stair and elevator there. At this corner, again, a lot of glass, a lot of brick piers that come down to the ground, and sort of a rhythm of different size openings and different kinds of openings that look out onto the street, to kind of echo the sort of things that we see in this community a lot. And so nighttime rendering, really just kind of the same view as before, but emphasizing that we think this piece at the 3rd floor at the top, as well as the cornice lines, the way they catch light, will be kind of a terrific sort of presence on the square, both day and night. That's it for me.
Okay, great, thank you. That concludes the presentation?
It does.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the board?
Will this be the largest single building in Maverick Square?
I believe the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center is slightly larger. I think that, if I remember correctly, is right around 48,000 square feet. This is
On a lot of comparable size?
It's actually a lot smaller. I think that lot is about 10,000 square feet, where this is about 18,000.
Curious as to what the position of the BCDC was on this.
I don't know that we have anything from the civic design.
Nothing?
No, a small project.
Small project. Okay. And could you elaborate a little bit more on the historic Howard clock?
Sure.
My understanding was that it's not just a clock, but that it was part of an agreement with the community that involved not demolishing the 2 adjacent buildings.
Through the
and we are talking about a clock and restoring it, and it's an historic clock, but My understanding is that it goes beyond the clock per se into understandings that were entered into and then perhaps breached by the proponent.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how far you want me to get into the weeds on this one. With respect to any agreement to preserve the buildings, I can equivocally say there was never an agreement to preserve the two buildings that were located on Maverick Street. I'm not sure what information was provided relative to that. Linear went through a very thorough and drawn-out process to obtain all of the approvals necessary from the City of Boston in order to demolish those buildings. There was a preference by the neighborhood to preserve them. However, Linear was very clear from the beginning in 2016 that the buildings that were existing on Maverick Street were not compatible with its proposed reuse of this site, and therefore went through a very comprehensive process with the Landmarks Commission relative to the Article 85 requirements, as well as inspectional services to demolish. So I'm not sure that what information you have that there was a commitment to preserve the buildings, because I don't think that was ever made by Linear, and I know that was never said publicly to any agency or entity as long as I've been involved with this project.
And where will the clock go?
With respect to the clock, through the chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the clock, from what we understand, was landmarked back in the 1980s. It's one of 5 clocks in the City of Boston that were given landmark designation. Interestingly, the clock at this site is the only clock of the 5 that was not in its original location. According to the landmark study report, it may have been originally located in Scully Square and was relocated to East Boston at some point where nobody has really been able to determine. Within the study report, it does actually state that if this clock were to be relocated, it would have to remain in the East Boston community. We did make an effort to go before the Landmarks Commission back in 2017 at the request of former Councilor Salamatina to look at the possibility of moving the restored clock to Central Square, which just has undergone a significant rehab. The Landmarks Commission was not very accommodating with that request, and we did hear from the community that was a strong desire to see the clock remain in Maverick Square. So since then, we have been working diligently on a plan to address doing just that, keeping the clock in Maverick Square. There is, and I don't want to, again, get too far down the road here, there is a replica clock, believe it or not, in Maverick Square presently in front of the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center. We will have a conversation with the Landmarks Commission about whether or not it makes sense to have 2 clocks in the square, one a replica of the one that we're trying to restore, or if it makes sense to have one clock be the focal point. I think the reasonable approach, and Linear is certainly willing to work with the health center on this, is to perhaps relocate the health center's clock to Central Square and bring back the historic clock into Maverick Square. Linear is fully committed to doing that and guaranteeing the cost of that restoration. They've already hired one of the premier experts in restoration of Howard clocks to do that, and they've committed that that clock can be restored.
Okay, if there's, thank you, Anna, for those questions. If there's no further questions or motions in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Item number 20, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 32 compact living rental units, including 4 IDP units and bicycle storage, located at 72 Burbank Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Tim.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. The project site is located on a vacant lot in the Fenway neighborhood, totaling approximately 3,575 square feet. It's bounded on the north by Burbank Street, on the east by a building at 70 Burbank Street, on the south by a private alley, and on the west by a building owned by the proponent at 91 Westland Ave. The proponent proposes to construct a 6-story, approximately 70-foot tall residential building totaling approximately 20,629 square feet. The proposed project will include 32 rental units, including 4 inclusionary development policy units. Although this project was proposed before the policy was formally adopted, the proposed project was designed following the intent of the city's compact living policy pilot. The proponent filed a small project review application on May 17th, 2018. A public meeting was held on June 7th. The proponent made several changes to the project based on feedback from that meeting, and a second public meeting was held on September 17th, 2018. The proposed project provides a number of public benefits. The proponent has agreed to a $10,000 contribution to the Boston Parks Department to support nearby Symphony Park. The proponent has agreed to provide a Blue Bike subscription to each resident for up to 5 years. The proponent has also agreed to stabilize the rent for 2 specified tenants in properties owned by the proponent elsewhere in the Fenway. And finally, the proponent has entered into an agreement with the Fenway Community Development Corporation, whereby the proponent will restrict undergraduate students from renting units in the proposed project under a monitoring regime administered by a third party in cooperation with Fenway CDC. This was a big priority for the neighborhood that came out during the community process, and the BPDA is not a party to that agreement. BPDA staff believes that the proposed project will be a positive addition to the Fenway neighborhood and is recommending approval of the proposed project. I'll now ask Mark Lacasse, representing the development team, to introduce himself and his team and present the project, and we'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Secretary Polimas, members of the board. Mark Lacasse for Forest Properties. Happy to present this compact unit building to you, which is located in the Fenway section of the city. If I could get this to go. Sorry, why isn't it working? Okay, sorry. 72 Burbank Street is in the Fenway neighborhood near Northeastern University and Symphony Hall. It is currently a vacant parcel of land shown in the dotted red right there. The larger building on the corner is 91 Westland Ave. It's an apartment building also owned by Forest Properties, and Forest has owned this parcel of land for approximately 30 years and has been used as surface parking for some of its maintenance staff, and not really a parking lot, if you will, but more of an accessory to the existing building, which is called Parkside Apartments. And the proposed new structure, 6 stories, will be located right on that vacant parcel. And I emphasize the vacant parcel nature because there was some discussion during some of our community meetings about displacement, which kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you're talking about constructing a building on a vacant parcel of land. Hard to understand how a vacant parcel of land in a neighborhood which desperately needs more housing units constitutes displacement, but nevertheless, it was an issue that arose. Here's a site plan again showing that's the larger building at 91 Westland Avenue, and this is the smaller parcel. It's approximately 3,500 square feet of land with an alley behind the large building that connects Westland Ave to Burbank Street. Here are some site photographs showing the location of the project. Upper left-hand corner again is the large building at 91 Westland Avenue. The vacant parcel is right here. The building immediately adjacent to the vacant parcel is 70 Burbank Street, and that is where the Fenway Community Development Corporation is located. We worked very closely with them to address their concerns related to the alley at the rear of the building where some of their employees park, and there are trash facilities that are used back there, so we pulled the back of the building away from the back alley to ensure vehicular access for garbage service and the parking for the Fenway CDC employees. This relates to the architect's view of how to fill in the vacant spot on this stretch of Burbank Street, and I'll leave that to Katie Fiedler from Embark Studios to talk about the architectural thinking, the design that went into the original concept for this new building, as well as the changes that were made as a result of the community process. In terms of the compact living policy itself, indeed we filed our application for small project review prior to the implementation of that policy by this board, but our architects were cognizant of that process and in fact participated in that process. So each step of the way, as the building was being designed, as the smaller units were being conceived, as the amenity spaces in the building were being designed, we had in mind all of the policies articulated in the compact living policy, and we believe that this building represents squarely the goals set by the compact living policy. Given the location of the building, however, in the Fenway section, near Northeastern, near Berklee College of Music, near lots of other schools. There seems to be a fear that it would be a de facto dormitory. It's not. My client doesn't develop dorms. They develop and own lots of residential properties in the Fenway. No doubt compact units are a new thing in the city, but it's another way to provide smaller spaces for people who actually want to live in smaller spaces. And having spoken to and consulted with companies that run compact living buildings in other cities, what we find is that they are most popular with younger people and older people. So there's definitely a demonstrated need for smaller units, and we think this fits nicely into the Fenway neighborhood. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katie Fiedler to talk about the design of the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Katie Fiedler with Embark. So as mentioned previously, we worked with the neighborhood to make sure that our design was in keeping with and respectful of the neighborhood context. This diagram, or this series of diagrams, shows kind of our latest iterations of that approach and our design. We surveyed the area and took a series of contextual photos to make sure that we're pulling design elements from the neighborhood into our building and into some of our edits and redesigns through the neighborhood process. These two renderings, the one on the left is an aerial view and the one on the right is a street view, show the current design. Some of the different challenges that we had with the site was that we were not only stepping from a 4-story building to an 8-story building, but those buildings were also, they had different street setbacks, so we were navigating 2 different planes. So our building is 6 stories and uses the banding of each building to relate our facade elements in to tie into those buildings and kind of allow the streetscape to flow, using some of the materiality from both. This is a street view that just kind of further emphasizes how you have that visual cue down the streetscape, that you don't have a harsh line that goes from 70 Burbank to 91 Westland, that we are utilizing kind of a large bay shape to allow our building to gracefully step from one plane to the next. We're also using a series of brick that ties in with the existing 70 Burbank, and as well as some stone banding at the entry as well. This is a street elevation that we did as a study to see how our building would fit in to the context of the entire street, although you'll never really perceive it all at once. You can kind of see our building is the second from the right, that you can see how it steps down and infills that vacant lot. Just some elevation showing the most current design. Also shows that we've respected the existing alley conditions in that area too. And then you can, sorry, apologies, it's a little small, but the original rendering is to the left, and the right shows our new proposed design with the input from the neighborhood. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Does that conclude the presentation? Yes. Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations, good luck. Item number 21, request authorization to execute an off-site affordable housing agreement with Transom Real Estate LLC in connection with the 212 Stewart Street project, IDP units, and to off-site affordable housing agreement with an off-site affordable housing agreement with Transom Real Estate LLC and a joint venture for the Fenway Community Development Corporation and the Scotchet Companies. Tim.
Secretary Polimas, Chairman Burke, and members of the board, I'm here today regarding the inclusionary development commitment for 212 Stewart Street. This is the first of 2 votes relative to the preservation of 97 affordable housing units at the Newcastle Saranac Apartments at 599 Columbus Avenue in the South End, and the potential creation of up to 46 new income-restricted homeownership units at the rear of this property. Newcastle Saranac is a so-called expiring use project created under the now-defunct State 13A program. Unlike federal expiring use properties, tenants have only limited protections when the 40-year restrictions expire. For this project, the income restrictions expired in March of 2018. With the help of a $6 million letter of credit from the 60 Kilmarnock Street project and a substantial purchase loan from the Community Economic Development Assistance Corporation, Fenway CDC and the Shochet companies purchased the buildings in January. We are now in the holding period where the development team will secure long-term funding to pay back CDEC and renovate the properties. In order to move forward with this project, I am seeking your approval today to allow the 212 Stewart Street project to meet its IDP obligations at Newcastle Saranac. 212 Stewart Street was approved in June of 2017 and will have 126 rental units. Under their original approval, they would have had 11 on-site IDP units and a payout of $3.3 million. At the time, we made a commitment to keeping these funds in the downtown neighborhoods. In order to assure feasibility of their project, 212 Stewart Street has requested that they now meet their obligation through the creation of 23 units off-site at Newcastle Saranac. Peter Spelios from the 212 Stewart Development Team is here if you should have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Tim. Item number 22. Request authorization to execute an off-site affordable housing agreement with 1000 Boylston Street owner LLC, care of the Wiener Ventures LLC, and a joint venture comprised of Transom Real Estate LLC and Harbor Run Development LLC in connection with the 1000 Boylston Street project IDP units, and to off-site affordable housing agreement with 1000 Boylston Street owner LLC and a joint venture with the Shochet companies and a Fenway Community Development Corporation. Tim.
Again, Secretary Palimas and members of the board, this is the second vote related to Newcastle Saranac. The 1000 Boylston Street project was approved in March 2018, and as part of that approval, the project received permission to meet its IDP obligation off-site. This obligation was for 51,840 square feet of rentable or sellable square feet containing a minimum of 19 units. So in other words, unlike the 212 Stewart Street project, this was already approved for all off-site, so we're not changing anything in that approval. We're only seeking today for the approval of the location of those units. So we're looking for the approval of those locations for at Newcastle Saranac, which is less than 1/2 mile from the project. The 1000 Boylston Street project will fund 29 units within the preservation component and 38 units within the new condominium building for a total of 67 units. I have a member from the 1000 Boylston Street team is here if you should have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Ayes
you.
have it. Thank you. Item number 23. Request authorization to purchase 2 units within the Laconia condominiums, unit number 117 and unit number 119, located at 1180 through 1200 Washington Street. Renee.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary, happy Valentine's Day. I'm here requesting that the board approve to purchase 2 condominium units at the Laconia condominiums located at 1180 to 1200 Washington Street in the South End. The Laconia condominiums are located on parcel SE 120 of the South End Urban Renewal Plan area. The housing development was designed for artists' live workspace and is made up of loft-style units. Unit 117 and 119 were combined and make up an affordable unit and a market rate unit. The owner no longer occupies the units, and staff has been working to preserve the on-site affordable unit. The purchase price of both units together is $912,500 and will be paid from the Inclusionary Development Policy Funds. By purchasing both units, the BPDA will work to separate them and replace the affordable housing restriction on the affordable unit to be sold to an eligible household. The market rate unit will either be sold to replenish the IDP fund or, if financially feasible, will be restricted and sold to an eligible household. By approving this purchase, the agency will be preserving a much-needed affordable unit in the South End and showing its commitment to preserve and create affordable housing whenever we can.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 24. Request authorization to adopt a minor modification to the South End Urban Renewal Plan, adding community open space to Parcel 5 located at 142 Shawmut Ave, and to advertise and issue a request for proposals for the disposition of Parcel 5 located at 142 Shawmut Ave to create a permanent community landscape open space and a pedestrian connection, and to take all related actions. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. Parcel 5 is an approximately 8,543 square foot BPDA-owned vacant land parcel located at 142 Shawmut Avenue in the South End Urban Renewal Area between the former Verizon building and the recently redeveloped Lucas condominium. This is an area that was studied as part of the long-range Harrison-Albany Corridor Strategic Plan completed in 2012. On January 30th, 2018, BPDA staff, with cooperation of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, held a well-attended community meeting at Castle Square Apartments Community Center in order to have a conversation with neighbors regarding their preferences for uses of Parcel 5. A 2-week comment period followed this meeting. The consensus of all feedback received overwhelmingly favored the creation of permanent landscaped open space open to the public and to benefit the community, with the future intention of helping to enable the east-west pedestrian connection between Harrison and Shawmut Avenues. This use is consistent with public realm and open space recommendations that ensued also from the Harrison-Albany Corridor Strategic Plan. Therefore, staff is requesting that Parcel 5 be made available via issuance of an RFP to create park-like permanent landscaped open space to benefit the community, with the future intention of helping to enable the east-west pedestrian connection. In addition, redevelopment of the landscaped open space at Parcel 5 requires a minor modification to the South End Urban Renewal Plan in order to include open space as a use allowed under the plan. Staff therefore also recommends that the board adopt a minor modification to the South End Urban Renewal Plan in order to allow the inclusion of open space as a land use permitted for Parcel 5. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 25, we're going to hold off till 5:30 to have the hearing. And we're going to go to item number 26, personnel.
Hello, Siobhan Feeney again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. We have a few items for your consideration on the BRA agenda. We have one appointment for your consideration with additional details listed in the board memo. Irene Andrew, Community Engagement Manager in the Downtown and Neighborhood Planning Department, with a start date of February 19th, 2019. We have two status changes for your consideration with additional details listed in the board memo. The first is Rita Lombardi, who is a compliance analyst in the Compliance Department, and the second is John Campbell, who is a project manager in the Development Review Team. We have two travel items for your consideration with additional details listed in the board memo for your review. The first is Lauren Shurtleff, Deputy Director for the Downtown and Neighborhood Planning, and John Tad Reed, Senior Deputy Director for Transportation and Infrastructure Planning, both from the Planning Division. And finally, we have one departure with additional details listed in the board memo, and Edward O'Donnell. And that's it. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. 27, contractual, we need a motion to pay the bills.
I move that we pay the bills.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And we're gonna do a brief director's report now, or do you wanna?
After the public hearing.
After the public hearing. You got plenty of time to do it now if you want.
I know.
Okay, so we're gonna have to adjourn until 5:30 when we can, pardon me? 5:40. We wanna be in compliance with what we advertise, so we'll be back at 5:40. Meeting adjourned. Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code, to consider the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 120 in connection with the proposed 144 Addison Street project in East Boston. The hearing was duly advertised on February 1st, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a Boston Planning and Development Agency hearing on a proposed petition by the BPDA, BPDA staff will first present its case and is subject to questioning by members of the board. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so, again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a brief period of rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about the proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Raul will now proceed with the presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Burke, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The 144 Addison Street project site consists of a 3.3 acre parcel of land currently used as a surface parking lot by a car rental company operating out of the airport. The site is bounded by the Brandywine Village Apartments to the north, the Maverick Mills building to the west, and the rear yards of Saratoga Street homes to the east. As mentioned a few moments ago, the proposed project before you today consists of an approximately 216,000 square foot residential development that includes 2 buildings ranging at 3 to 5 stories with 230 residential rental units, including 30 IDP units, 169 off-street parking spaces, storage space for at least 230 bicycles, and associated open space, streetscape, and public realm improvements. With respect to the Article 80 process, the proponent submitted a letter of intent to the BPDA on July 27, 2017, which led to the formation of an 11-member impact advisory group. Thereafter, the proponent filed a project notification form with the BPDA on January 19, 2018, which triggered a public comment period that concluded on March 9, 2018. Following the conclusion of the initial comment period, the BPDA issued a scope and determination to the proponent on May 18, 2018. In response to the scope and determination, the proponent filed the draft project impact report on August 13, 2018, and a draft plan development area development plan on August 20th, 2018. These documents triggered a public comment period that ultimately concluded on November 8, 2018. During that time frame, a total of 5 IAG meetings and 3 public meetings were sponsored by the BPDA and held throughout the review process. In addition to the BPDA-sponsored meetings, the development team conducted their own additional community outreach with area residents, local elected officials, and area civic associations, including the Orient Heights Neighborhood Council and the Harborview Neighborhood Association. As a result of the BPDA facilitated review process and feedback that was expressed throughout the process, the proponent worked collaboratively with BPDA staff, area residents, the Impact Advisory Group, local elected officials, and the general public to address areas of concern related to the project, and has resulted in the proposal before you today. Additionally, a short while ago, City Councilor Lydia Edwards submitted a letter of support in connection with the project, and I'd like to provide this letter for the record. At this time, I would like to hand it over to Damian Zari from Gate Residential to further the presentation.
Chairman Tucker, Madam Secretary, members of the board, thank you very much. My name is Damian Zari. I'm with Gate Residential Properties on behalf of the proponent, 144 Addison Street Partners. I'm just going to back up a couple slides. So the site in question is a 3.3 acre site located in the lower Orient Heights section of East Boston. It's relatively equidistant from the Blue Line stations at both Wood Island as well as Orient Heights. overall, as we were designing this project, we experienced some challenges associated with the geometry and with the topography that I'll touch upon later. But I believe what we're going to be presenting to you tonight, based upon input from BPDA staff as well as the community, is a residential project that fits well into the fabric of the neighborhood, and at the same time also gestures to some of its additional kind of industrial neighbors as well. But overall, as Raul mentioned, the site is outlined in the dashed line. It's currently used as high-density parking storage for cars from Avis and Budget. This is all overflow cars from the airport. In terms of adjacencies and what's happening around the building, to the north and northeast, we have Brandywine Village. That is a 400-plus unit mixed-income community in a multifamily residential zone. To the southeast on Saratoga Street is a 2- and 3-family zone. To the west, you see the 400,000 square foot, 175 industrial McClellan building, and just off the page right up here is a 12-story hotel. It's the Courtyard by Marriott. And along Addison Street, which is an EDA zone, you have a mix of industrial as well as residential uses. So overall, of the 230 units, as Raul mentioned, 30 of them will be IDP units that are going to be on site. I think something that we're really proud of is the amount of publicly accessible open space that we're able to create. So as I mentioned, this is a 3.3 acre paved parking lot. We're going to be creating almost 2 acres of publicly accessible open space. In terms of jobs, we anticipate that the project's going to generate 300 to 400 construction jobs and approximately 8 permanent positions associated with managing and maintaining this building. In terms of connectivity, our goal is really to promote bicycle use and walkability. We're going to do that through providing an on-site Blue Bike sponsorship program. We're also making significant off-site improvements to the landscape, which I'll address on a further slide. And we hopefully hope that's going to help enhance walkability and help improve the connectivity to the retail in the neighborhood as well. We've had a very extensive community process. We actually started this project over 2 years ago. Prior to filing our letter of intent in July of 2017, we had over 20 individual meetings with abutters, neighborhood stakeholders to present the project. And during the P&F process and the DPIR process, we had over 15 community and IAG meetings. And actually, over the last 3 months of the project, we've had an intense series of meetings with the abutters to try to best address their concerns, and that's actually shaped and changed the project a lot. And on future slides, I'll show you what we've done in order to try to address those concerns. From a program standpoint, I think Raul touched upon all this, but just in summary, 3.3 acre site, we're proposing a 215,000 square foot building. That building is going to have 230 units, of which 30 will be IDP units. It will also include, approximately 11 to 12,000 square feet of amenity space. We're providing bicycle parking on a 1-to-1 ratio, so 230 bicycle parking spaces as well as 15 visitor spaces for bicycles. And our parking ratio is going to be 0.74, 169 spaces. From a zoning standpoint, we're actually proposing a project that is approximately 25% less than what's allowed by zoning. Our FAR is 1.51 in comparison to the 2.0 FAR. As it relates to height, we're matching the allowed height under the PDA of 55 feet. And in terms of any setbacks, rear, front, and side yards, we're far exceeding what's required under either the EDA or the PDA. From a unit mix standpoint, approximately 8% of the units are going to be studios. Excuse me, I can't see that number from that far away. 61%, 140 units will be 1 bedrooms, and 72 units will be 2 bedrooms. These 2 series of images just kind of show you some context of the site. The image on top is a view in front of the site looking east. So the site is delineated by that blue fence. You can see Brandywine Village on the left, the Saratoga homes straight ahead, and then the Addison Street to the right. That's a light day for parking use on that site. That lot oftentimes has a lot of cars moving in and out. The view on the bottom is looking from the site due west, where you can get a glimpse of the 175 McClellan Industrial Building on the left-hand side, Brandywine Village on the right-hand side, and then the 12-story Courtyard by Marriott Hotel in the background as well. In terms of site context, the first series of images on top are images of Addison Street. Addison Street has a mixed residential and industrial composition, but it's largely dominated by the 175 McClellan building, which stretches approximately 800 feet down the street. One of the major improvements that we're going to be instituting is actually replacing that fence and actually installing landscaping. And this is outside of our mitigation. We're going to be installing landscaping all the way down Addison Street. We've worked with the abutters, and we're going to ask the Addison Street abutters to be part of that final design process to figure out what the landscape should be. It's going to be a series of plantings, some fencing potentially, because there are some steep areas, but we're going to work collectively with them. The next series of photos is the intersection of Addison Street and Saratoga. During community meetings, this was brought up as a challenged intersection, primarily because of some sightline concerns and also because people really don't obey the stop sign there. We're going to be installing a raised crosswalk across Addison Street in order to help mitigate traffic there. Third down are images associated, and this will be easier to see once I show you the site plan. There is an informal access road on the east side of our property that is utilized by abutters in order to access the rear of their homes. This was never formalized from the previous owner and the previous variance that was granted. We're going to be actually rebuilding this road. We're going to be granting a formal easement to all the Saratoga Street abutters so they have access to their rear yards in perpetuity. There currently actually is even no curb cut, so they're actually hopping a curb to try to access this. And so we're going to be improving that condition significantly. On the bottom, you see kind of a series of imagery associated with the approach down something we call the McClellan Access Drive. One of the topics we're going to talk about tonight is traffic and how we try to mitigate traffic on Addison Street. Everyone who enters this garage is going to be coming from 1A down this McClellan Access Drive. So one of the things we wanted to do is beautify that with landscaping, and so we'll be showing you some of that as well too. So this is the overall site plan for the project, and I'm going to be, the next slide is actually an enlarged site plan where we'll be discussing some of the changes, but I wanted to show this to you to kind of highlight some of the major off-site improvements that we're doing. So as I mentioned, this entire section of Addison Street is going to get improved with landscaping and new fencing, so that's roughly 1,000 square feet, which will hopefully improve obviously the pedestrian experience and hopefully improve the experience for the residents on that street as well too. When I mentioned additional improvements on the McClellan Access Drive, that's happening right here. So additional landscaping that's going to happen, and then some kind of key design features for the project. The topography here is challenging. It's almost a bowl site, but we're trying to utilize that to our advantage. There's going to be a pool for the residents that's actually made out of a shipping container with a glass front, kind of a very cool industrial kind of architectural feature. We're going to have landscaping poking through some of these areas of the deck, where we'll be kind of inserting hammocks as well too. So really trying to do something creative. But overall, the project itself is comprised of 2 buildings. As going through the BCDC design process, one of the important factors that was realized is that these buildings need to, because of the lack of frontage on Addison Street, these buildings really need to like act as one building. So one of the big changes was incorporating this glass connector. So in essence, if you come to this project and the front door is actually right there, you feel like you're either going to the north building or the south building. And the fact that they feel like one building is very, very important. And this is the enlarged site plan, and I wanted to kind of just really quickly reiterate the project and then talk about the significant changes that were made. So overall, the rear building here, the north building, has 125 units. The front building here has 105 units. This section of the front building is a 3-story section along the street wall to kind of better represent what's going on in the street. It actually bumps up to 4 stories right here. The rear building is actually 5 stories with a 4-story section right here. In terms of the changes that were made, the project was originally proposed as 270 units. We actually eliminated 40 units from the project, so it's at currently 230 units. The way we did that is we pulled this edge of the building back and terraced the building in order to provide greater relief for the Saratoga residents. And then we also eliminated the entire top floor of this building, the entire 5th floor, in response to some of the concerns we heard from the Addison Street residents. A couple of the key features is, as I mentioned earlier, all entry and egress from the garage is down the McClellan Access Drive, so you enter the garage right here. Originally, the project had an egress only out onto Addison Street, but citing concerns associated with the project, we eliminated that. Another key feature was this access drive right here for short-term parking. That was also seen as an issue for the residents, And so what we did is we restricted that, and so there's going to be a gate there, controlled access gate, and that's related to, and will only be utilized by people looking to lease an apartment, so first-time visitors during business hours. In order to handle drop-offs and deliveries, Uber, things like that, we're going to be creating an Uber drop-off area in the back right here, and that actually works pretty well because the cores of the building are here and here, so we think that's going to be a good solution in order to do that. And then very quickly, in terms of the elevations, we're really using kind of four materials. There's going to be an iron spot brick in this section of the building, the three-story section of the building, and this is an elevation looking east. So the long section of the south building and the short section of the north building. The south facades of both buildings are going to have an architectural corrugated metal, which kind of hints to the industrial nature kind of to that side of the building and also works with sun reflectivity, providing an interesting facade. The north facades will be in cementitious board, and that's going to be of varying expressions and also trying to do something in terms of patterning, so it's very interesting. And there's also a significant amount of storefront in the amenity area, as well as the amenities here and in the glass connector. So really quickly, this is the, because I only have 2 minutes left, this is the approach from Addison Street. This is what you will be seeing. The fence has been removed and landscape. This is the three-story structure. You shouldn't even be seeing the fourth floor from this angle, and you can see the five-story building in the back right here. This is the approach in the opposite direction from Saratoga going down Addison Street. So you can see once again the three-story structure in iron spot brick, and you can see the fourth floor peeking out in this elevation. This is the new access drive that we're going to be creating for those residents of Saratoga Street to enter their rear yards. And this is the approach down the McClellan access drive, and this is the imagery. The five-story building here, and then the four-story building right in this area, as well as heavy landscaping. And this is just an image of that car area of the four-story building with the fifth floor removed, and kind of trying to show what the facade may look like in different lights, and obviously it takes more of a golden hue with the setting sun. So that's the project.
Great, thank you very much. That concludes your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So this is a public hearing, so we're going to hold off any questions until after we have the comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please step right up and state your name if you'd like to speak in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Minor Perez, representing the Carpenters Union. On behalf of hundreds of union carpenters that live and work throughout the city of Boston, I want to record support.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Gary Walker, electricians, Local 103, like to speak in strong support also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Tom Ward, Executive Board members, Local 7 of the Iron Workers, I rise in favor of this project.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and member of the boards, my name is Richard Scaramosa. I live at 135 Addison Street and I'm a lifelong resident. I have come here today to support the Article 80 process and the staff of the BPDA. Senior Project Manager Raul Devaj has shown the utmost respect to the residents during the process, which at times has not been so pleasant. Senior staff Jonathan Greeley, Mike Christopher attended one of many nightly abutters meetings to hear the concerns that the residents had. The Community Engagement Manager, Jason Ruggiero, has put in countless hours listening and talking to the abutters about their concerns. Also, the time and effort that Councilor Edwards and her staff has put into the project. And most of all, I'd like to thank the mayor for also getting involved in it as well. On behalf of the Addison Street residents, I want to thank them all. A large project in an already highly dense area will have its challenges. I feel working with the PDA and also the developer to address any and all future concerns is one of the most important parts of the process, and look forward to working with them. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Hi, my name is John Fitzgerald. I'm also an Addison Street resident, and I came here for the same reasons Richie did. There were people in this room that really helped us, Raul, Jason. I can't speak enough about Lydia Edwards. I mean, there was a lot of things on this project that I needed to learn, and they helped me learn. And two of those words were change and compromise. The change part I caught on pretty good, but the compromise, like they said, there were a lot of meetings, and they were very heated meetings. And they would always make me feel that I was being heard, even though I didn't think the developer was listening. You know, and they sat me down, they explained it to me. Mr. Fitzgerald, you're not gonna get everything you want, but neither is the developer. You need to compromise. And like I said, that was a hard word for me to understand and finally come to terms with. And like I said, if it wasn't for those people and the mayor, I was always told that after every meeting, the next day, the mayor wanted to know what went on, what was said. He really showed concerns, and like I said, I felt like I was being heard, and I wanted to come here and acknowledge those people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Well, my name's Mark Wallace. I'm owner of Parlor Custom Skis. I own a manufacturing business in the back of 175 McClellan Highway. We've been there for about 4 years, and in that time we've grown from 1 employee to I think we have 7 full-time employees now. So we're adding some jobs there, and we've had nothing but good experiences with the landlord who's part of this. And I'd also like to speak a little bit about the traffic pattern in that parking lot, being there every day. There are a lot of big trucks in and out, and having that many cars moving around, it's not safe for us, not safe for the customers, and it's loud. And we see this project as a really big improvement, not only to our area, but to the community. We feel like it would add a lot to that part of the neighborhood and bring in some new people as well, which we would welcome. So we're in support of the project.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Veronica Robles. I'm the co-founder of the Veronica Robles Cultural Center, which is located right in 175 McClellan Highway. We opened 6 years ago, and we love the space because of the parking, and inside the building we have a very beautiful space, large space, but the area is currently dangerous for our members. We have about 300 members that come to the building during the week after 5 o'clock for after-school programs, and many of our members are having a hard time attending our programs because of the way that is right now. So in terms of safety and security, we also agree that this will be a great asset to the community, the plans and everything, the way they've been working with the community too. We've been there, we are a nonprofit organization, and none of any of the developers that are being in the city right now have approached to us to see if we need anything. And last summer, they also, help us on a program that we did at Suffolk Downs, and they've been very good, and I think they will be also very good to this community in all of the aspects. So we're here to support. I'm also the second vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. We're also been in support of these projects since the very beginning. So thank you very much, and thank you for bringing this to the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Patricia. I'm a lifelong resident of East Boston. I actually live in Brandywine Village for the past 2 years, and I own a business, a flooring business at 175 McClellan, and we've been there for 6 years. And as Veronica said, the same thing, safety, and we do have a beautiful space over there. But I think with this project opening up the McClellan, when you come off the highway, that's really the only entrance coming into that parking lot. So for them to be repaving that whole entrance from Boardman Street and then redoing Addison Street, the project is just beautiful. And as I said, living in East Boston my whole life, I'm 3rd generation, and I'm raising my daughter there. And when they finish this project, I may even be interested in leasing one of these units. It's beautiful. So I'm just here to support that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hi, Paul Scott. I have a business at 175 McClellan. Been there about 5 years now. And as somebody else mentioned, we have a growing staff, so it'd be really nice to beautify the area and even have employees potentially get housing there too, which would be really good for us as a fit. And the safety and the parking lot would be really nice on these new views up here. So full support.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Hello, my name is Marisa DiPietro, and I'm a lifelong resident of East Boston. And I know this area pretty well. I was also part of the chamber and go to 175 McClellan a lot. And I want to give my wholehearted support of this project. I've attended many community meetings about this project and others, and I want to echo what other people before me had said about Raul and Jason and Damien being so gracious at times when it was very testy in the room and things got really heated. They always kept their cool, and they really listened to abutters, and you can see that in the changes that have been made to this project. And I think visually you can see from what it looks like now to what they're proposing, the dramatic difference in safety, lighting, paving the roads, the greenery, just, everything. And they've done a great job, and I'm very much in support of this whole project. And I'm happy to be an East Bostonian. I'm happy to have them in East Boston. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none. Are there any questions from the board members or comments from the board members? Everyone's satisfied, okay? It's pretty
Yeah, I guess just from a comment perspective, I just want to thank all the people who came out tonight to make their voices heard for this project, and also thank the BPDA staff and the developer for executing what seems to be like a very robust and honest and authentic process. So thanks for that feedback. Thanks for your compromise,
Okay, well, thank you. So if there's no more questions or comments, a motion is in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, the last item on the agenda is, well, I'll give people time to leave if they're leaving.
You don't think they want to listen to me?
Director's
Mr.
report.
Chairman?
What's that?
You don't think they want to listen to me?
Raul's cousins.
As always, you too.
I think it's great when they get comments like that. It really is. Oh, man. I was persuaded.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Andy has my number if you guys want it.
It's hard.
You guys need any digital strategy? Oh, we do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so the last item is the director's report, which will be given to us tonight by our secretary, executive secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Just a couple of items for you this evening. On January 29th, Mayor Walsh joined the Boston Tax Help Coalition and other community partners at the Roxbury Center for Financial Empowerment to highlight the free tax preparation services that are available to low and moderate income Boston residents through the Office of Financial Empowerment, which is an affiliate of the Office of Workforce Development, which, as you know, is part of EDIC. The coalition serves approximately 13,000 taxpayers per year, and last year enlisted hundreds of volunteers to return $24 million in refunds and credits directly to taxpayers. It provides free tax preparation services at more than 30 partner locations throughout the city to help residents who earn $55,000 or less per year to maximize the earned income tax credit and claim the full refunds they are due. In addition to the tax preparations, the coalition provides clients with other services to improve their financial health. New this year, the coalition will also be using the financial checkup as an outreach tool to identify taxpayers who aspire to homeownership. These taxpayers will be eligible for homebuyer readiness workshops and individualized financial coaching and credit building assistance to help them work towards their goal. I encourage anyone in the city who qualifies for these services to take advantage of them. There's more information available on our website. On February 9th, the planning staff hosted a city resource fair as part of the Mattapan planning process. It is guided by Imagine Boston 2030, and we are working closely with the community to create a comprehensive vision for Mattapan that will guide future growth and investment in the planning area. Through the first two planned Mattapan workshops held on October 25th and December 10th, BPDA staff heard that residents wanted to better connect to city resources. As a result, on this past Saturday, February 9th, BPDA staff and city departments held a resource fair for residents to learn more about ongoing BPDA work in Mattapan and to learn about city programs and resources that are available to the community. The fair included a short presentation from the BPDA with updates from the last two community workshops, followed by time to allow community members to connect with the city departments. The materials presented, which are also available in Haitian Creole and Spanish, are available for you to see here if anybody wants to take a look at them. As you know, the BPDA's research department publishes reports on a variety of topics on a regular basis that are of interest to many, including developers, economists, planners, fellow researchers, and anyone interested in Boston. The research department has already published 6 reports since the beginning of this year on topics such as trends on Article 80 development, approaches to immigration policy and their impacts on Boston, and demographic trends, including the demographic profile of adult limited English speakers in Massachusetts. I'd like to highlight 2 reports tonight, the Boston in Context report and the Boston at a Glance for 2019. The Boston in Context report tabulates various social, demographic, and economic characteristics from 2013 to 2017 American Community Survey by Boston neighborhoods. Citywide totals, as well as totals for Massachusetts and the United States, are provided for comparison, and the report includes 23 pages of neighborhood-level data covering a variety of topics, including age distribution, housing, educational attainment, transportation, and income. Boston at a Glance for 2019 provides frequently asked information about Boston's populations and development, and it's a useful resource for all those interested in Boston. You have copies of each of these reports in your package tonight, and all the reports produced by the research department are available on our website. During the last 2 weeks of January, all BPDA managers underwent a management training as part of our improvement in internal operations. The managers attended an immersive 2-day management training designed and delivered by JM Reed Group. The purpose of this training was for BPDA managers to learn the skills and behaviors necessary to drive organizational performance, build trust within teams, and enhance 2-way communication throughout the organization. The 2-day training provided a solid foundation to build and enhance the BPDA's ability to execute and deliver on strategic objectives on behalf of the City of Boston. It was a great opportunity for all the managers, and I think the reaction was incredibly positive from everyone who participated in it. And on a final note, tonight we say farewell to Sarah Meyerson, our Director of Planning. On behalf of all of us who've had the pleasure to get to know and work with her, I'd like to thank Sarah for her incredible dedication and hard work at the BPDA. Sarah has elevated planning and spent the last 4 years of her life serving the City of Boston and its residents in many meaningful ways that will reap dividends for years to come. Sarah first joined the administration to guide Boston 2024, followed by Imagine Boston 2030, the city's first master plan in decades, and since has been responsible for overseeing complex, comprehensive neighborhood planning initiatives, including Plan JP Rocks, Plan Ave, Plan Glover's Corner, and Plan Dudley. Sarah continually supported and advanced the mission of the BPDA to foster transparency and equity in planning by building a diverse planning team and by encouraging an open and inclusive approach to public engagement. Sarah's dynamic talent, keen analytical skills, humor, and humility will be missed, and she leaves behind very big shoes to fill. Thank you, Sarah.
And I'll just add, as one board member, and others may want to speak to this as well. Sarah's been, you've been, I think, incredibly open and inclusive, and you've essentially presided over the transition of this agency from what it was, which is to say perceived as kind of distant and aloof, to what it has become, which is much more open and transparent in many, many ways. And from the perspective of a board member, it appears that you have inspired and empowered your staff in a way that is largely free of the kind of big ego that heads of planning departments for cities often exude. And I've seen you present to the real estate community at 8 o'clock in the morning and to community groups at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night for years. And I wish you the best in the next set of activities that you're going to engage in. And I have to say that you're going to be sorely missed as a person who has brought character and quality and humility, as was used, and effectiveness to this position. So thank you.
Okay. I just also, like I said, I can't believe it's been 4 years. I mean, it just went like that. But, yeah, we're well aware of the changes that you brought to the agency and the improvements that you made. And as Ted mentioned, the transparency, just a way of doing, a different way of doing business now that I think people feel that the planning department is approachable. I'll say that. But we all want to wish you well, and hopefully we'll see you maybe come here someday to testify or participate. Present. I mean, present. That was, yeah. But thank you. Thank you very much for all your work, and we'll miss you. Okay, if there's no further comments or questions, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Congratulations.